Hello, guys, and a very warm welcome to another episode of Speak India with Optody. I am Pratik, your host and the moderator for today's discussion. So, guys, in 2019, in an international conference held on political psychology in Lisbon, Sean Rosenberg, who is a professor in the University of California, he's a political scientist, he's a professor of political science. He presented a research paper, and the research paper was so shocking that there was a huge uproar in the hall there, and there was huge thing thereon. So what he claimed in his research paper was that since the past 2 decades, the democracy is dying. So the golden period of democracy ended around 10 years ago, last decade, and right now the democracy is on the path of destroying itself. He also claimed that after democracy, what will come will be the right wing populist governments. So that was a big claim to make, after which a lot of countries had debated this issue vigorously. Many books were written. But since some past few years, what is happening in India is also raising some questions. Many in India are now claiming that a similar fate for Indian democracy will happen. Since the rise of Narendra Modi led BJP government came to power, these claims are rising. And with that, today we are discussing the topic whether democracy in India is on decline. For this discussion today, we have with us Shivang Goyal, who is a business analyst. He'll be arguing that democracy is on decline. And we also have on other side Souryadeep Ghosh, who is a student at Surendranath Law College, Kolkata. He'll be arguing that democracy is not on decline. And now, guys, before moving to the discussion, if you like content on our page, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, and please like, follow, and share us on Instagram and Facebook. The details of both of them are on the screen before you. And also, in case, since this is an open to discussion platform, in case you want to participate in our discussions, you are very welcome. You can contact us on the details given on the screen. Now, we will jump right to the discussion. We will dive it deep into the topic, and we will listen from our participants, our panelists, what do they think. So for first, I will come to Shivang. Shivang, I would like to take your opening statement first, and I would like to know, why do you think that democracy is declining in India? Over to you, Shivang.
Oh, okay, so first of all, thank you for having me here on this panel, and I am really obliged to be here, and it feels really good to talk about all these things. So, to substantiate my argument, I would like to talk about things that make up democracy, and let's look at democracy on a micro level and on a macro level, and see why is it declining, and why do we feel that it's on a decline in an increasing pace. So the four indexes that make up democracy in any country are very simple. First, civil liberties index, freedom of expression index, rule of law index, and academic freedom index. So all these, based on all these four indexes, I am quoting a study by The Economist. It was mentioned almost a month ago. And in that section, it was mentioned that all these indexes are on a decline in our country, and these indexes are declining, and there are various instances which contribute to this decline. Now, this decline is not a sudden decline, which might be a spike drop in the graph. It's a gradual decline, which it is falling on a gradual pace, but it is going towards levels which are touching the same levels that we had during the emergency period, which were steep, and it was the fear and the threat to democracy was pretty clear, and the same levels, we are approaching the same levels on a gradual pace, in a declining pace, in these four indexes, and that is what makes up my argument for the motion. And there are various instances substantiating all of them: why civil liberties index is declining, why freedom of expression index is declining, and why rule of law and the academic freedom is declining. And there are various cases and instances that I will be talking about in the coming debate, and this is what my opening statement would look like.
Okay, thank you, Shivang. Thank you, Shivang. Now, I would like to come to the opposite side, Suryadeep. Suryadeep, why do you think, can I have opening statement from you? Why do you think democracy is not on decline and everything is going as usual, normal?
Well, I think at the very onset, I would like to make a quote by the US President elect Joe Biden, that is, democracy is sometimes messy and it requires a little patience. And I think this quote is the most relevant of our times at this moment, and it's most relevant to the very topic we are the very reason why we are having this debate. I understand that there are some isolated events which proves a threat to the democracy, which proves a threat to the very structure of our nation and maybe that of the world. But it is very wrong, on the other hand, to call out on the democracy and its decline because of these isolated events, because we always have a counter to these isolated events, and we always have seen for ages, if we are to take our nation as the primal context of this debate, that we have strived as a nation even in those challenging times, even when we have our democracy has been challenged. We have come out of that, we have shown our resilience as the people of the nation, and we have seen that even though it is challenged, we have made our way out of it. So we cannot really call it a decline of democracy. So my opening statement would be very simple, and also learned opposition mentioned something about putting it on a graph. I would like to say that it's very wrong to put democracy on a graph, because democracy is a constant procedure, and it's not a share market that you put on a graph and you show lines that it is declining today and the next day it's going to go up. It's not like that. Democracy is a very fragile concept, and it's a constant procedure that goes on along with the people. Today there's a protest, tomorrow there's some consequences of the protest. It involves the handling of the government, on how the government is looking at the protest, what's the outcome. Everything is involved. It's not like if there's a protest today, that means the democracy has declined, or if the protest is being like heard to, or the protest is being like removed forcefully, the democracy is going away. No. If there's a protest, we need to understand that's one event. We need to understand the whole scenario, what led to the protest, what happened, and even if we don't like the scenario, we need to understand that we can have alternative measures to those. It's not like for
Okay.
one isolated event we need to call out on the democracy and say that there's no democracy in our country or it has reduced.
Okay. So for the opening statement, I think it would be wise to say that the for the motion has argued that there are some indexes on which democracy depends, and all the indexes are declining, which shows that the democracy is declining. While on the other side, the opposition is arguing that democracy is not declining because you can't measure democracy on graph, and so that is a direct challenge to the argument of foe. Now I would like to come again back to Shivang. And Shivang, this time I want you to dive deep into the topic and substantiate and support your opening statement. Also, keep in mind, Shivang, I would like to add this to your argument, means the question to your argument. Can you please also answer, like right now, as your opposition quite frankly, he said that there are isolated events which happen, and those happens have happened time and again since our independence. Is this are
Right.
these events basis of your argument that the democracy is declining? Can you please
Well,
answer?
but the basis of my argument, first of all, before answering your question, I would like to clear one thing out about the representation that I am, trying to project here. So, by looking at a graph, I do not, and by putting democracy on a graph, by putting all these indexes on a graph on a linear time, I'm trying to paint a picture that actually helps us understand the timeline, and that is what makes up the graph actually. For a graph I just need some time and some kind of a quantitative measure to understand it better in a more graphical sense, just to paint a better picture. I completely agree that democracy is not it's not like financial markets. It's an ongoing process, it's a procedure, and I respect that. But uh, coming back to the question here, I would like to point it out that these isolated instances actually make up for a lot of things. And by I am not just looking at this one instance, I'm looking at what goes into what really it triggered that incident and what happened after, what was the aftermath of it. I'm actually talking about all of the things. And let's get back to the substantiation. So we have seen quite steep decline in our academic freedom index, and these indexes actually matter a lot when we think about the publishing academic freedom of people or the left liberals who actually want to criticize, who are actually being doing nothing but giving constructive criticism, and we would definitely would want to have that in a nation where it's a fundamental part of democracy, where people argue about something and then they come up to a conclusion and then they talk about it, and then they check out, okay, what do you want, okay, these are all your points, these are all your points, and then they come to a consensus. That is what democracy is, and the decline in this ratio directly questions that in my understanding. And the reason I want to point it out is that there are various journalists and intellectuals who have written a constructive criticism against the Modi government, and they have seen a steep decline. And let me point it out, the worst case that happened. There was a journalist in Bangalore called Gauri Lankesh. She was a harsh critic of the right wing, and she was assassinated. And that took us by a shot. She was young, and this is just one case that has happened, and there are more than 45 journalists which are facing such things. And it's not just about journalism, it's about
Yeah,
all the
many have been held in preventive
intellectuals who are
detention as
trying
well.
to.
Right, right. I'm getting your point. I'm getting your point. But
Okay,
right
this is
now, I
just
would give, yeah, yeah,
this is just
Shivang, do you
one of
have
the
something to
indexes
add?
that I'm substantiating. There are three more indexes, and let me just quickly sum up my argument. We rank 142nd in the freedom of expression index, and there are various vague laws in the IPC and the IT Act which actually does not define the freedom of speech index, and with the laws are being misused a lot.
Shivang,
And
we
we'll
might
talk
have
about that.
we might have fallen 4 or 5 points down on that rank list. That
Okay,
doesn't
cool.
show that
So
really democracy is on decline, because India was really not on top 10 of that list anyways. India was never on the
100%,
list of top.
100%.
Yeah,
No. Yeah, my point is that we are on a decline. We are sleepwalking towards an authoritarian democracy. It's not a gradual process. It's not a sudden thing. It's a process that is happening day by day with various things. And the rule of law index is actually the one that I want to point out. There are various laws, but one of the ones that took me by surprise was something related to electoral bonds that came in 2017.
right.
And this law actually questioned our integrity of all the apex institutions in our country, including RBI, ECI, Parliament, and Supreme Court. And when such things happen, it makes me think, there is nothing that is stopping the government in power to exercise their right, exercise their need and question all the apex institutions which are there to make sure that the democracy stays in place. And when they fail to function, I fear that I am losing democracy, and that is the argument. And
Okay.
I would like to, move on and talk more about the electoral bond law. And there are several other laws like
Okay,
CAA,
okay.
which
I will come
would.
back to you for that, Shivang. I think I'll come back to you.
Right.
Before that, I'll like to give chance to the opposition. Since the opposition, I'm quite sure that opposition has their own answer to your arguments. But with those answers, I would also like to add some questions to for you to answer, Suryadeep.
Yeah.
Suryadeep, there are a couple of things. You said that there have been isolated events. What do you mean by isolated events? Because from where I see, last 3 years there have been constant protests, and there has been breach of right to protest constantly. Now, I would not call 3 years of continuous this thing as an isolated event. Plus, there have been laws, there have been many laws which have been contested upon. Like, people are from the right wing party, people are saying that, not saying, introducing bills, private members' bills, so that word secularism could be removed from the preamble. India doesn't want to be a secular country anymore. Does that clearly says that? Do you think really these are isolated events? Plus your own response to the answer to the arguments of opposition.
Absolutely. So, on the very onset, I want to make one point from the opposition before I move on to the question raised. That is,
Right.
see, learned opposition gave a lot of indexes. Now, I want to mention this to the learned house that you see these indexes, even if it shows a decline, these indexes are primarily quantitative in nature. These are not qualitative. No one shows what quality is declining. They are showing that in quantity we are having so many protests, like you just mentioned that there were so many several protests and not one isolated event in the last 3 years. So yes, we have had several protests, but we are not talking about the nature of the protest or the magnanimity of the protest, of how big it is, of how serious it is. We are talking about the number of protests. Now you see, even if one person has a problem with the present structure or the present law, and that person starts a protest, then that too becomes that too increases the number of protests in the nation, right? Now understand this. Now
But right
when
now, Suryadeep, right now I'm talking about huge protests, which not only captured the eyes of the nation, they went international. People from outside were seeing it. Okay, so their
absolutely, I'll
protests were
answer that.
really on mass scale.
I'll answer that. Now, when you're talking about these protests, understand this, that not all protests are meant to garner victory. You see, when let's talk about Shaheen Bagh, or let's talk about the present farmers' law. Since you mentioned international attention, since the Prime Minister of Canada intervened and he spoke
Right.
about he raised his concerns about the farmers' protest. Now, understand that the farmers' protest might very well see the same fate as the Shaheen Bagh protest against the CAA NRC, that very well no changes might come into effect. It might have the same fate. But not all protest is made to garner victory. It is sometimes just there to show the oppressor that there exists, someone is there to oppose you. It is sometimes meant to show the oppressor that there is an opposition to you. We may not gain victory by those protests, but there is an opposition to what you are doing. That is democracy. I believe the very power to show the oppressor that yes, there is an opposition. We exist. We are there to challenge you. We are there to challenge what you are doing. I think that is democracy, and the very platform they are getting, they get to whatever platform, be the social media, be the roads, they have the situation where they can protest, right? This is not North Korea, that there's a complete dictatorship and you cannot do, and you walk on the road and you take a left turn instead of right, you get arrested. In India we still have the situation where we get to protest. So I believe democracy is still there, and I think that is my answer to your question. Now if I move forward with my arguments which I had, that is,
Okay.
I believe democracy is at its peak when it is challenged the most. And we have had several incidents, from in the 74 years of independence, that we have had a full blown emergency, we have had riots in the nation, and we still stand here as a nation where we could call our nation a democratic one. Like learned opposition said that we are reaching a scenario same as to the emergency, as critical as the emergency, and that is why there's a decline. But I just want to say that even after the emergency, it was declared unconstitutional. There was a body that declared the emergency unconstitutional once it happened, right? So I believe even if we are in a dire situation right now, even if the situation is completely wrong in the country, we will walk out of it as a nation, because as long as we stay united, right, we can move forward. So I won't call that democracy is declining. I will say that democracy is being challenged. It is being challenged every single day for since 2014, like any other year maybe. It is being
So,
challenged.
don't you think you're just using a fancy word in our discussion? You just said that you don't agree that democracy is on decline, but you do agree that democracy is being challenged. So, is this your way of telling that that you are using a term challenge instead of decline to justify your argument?
Now, I'll justify my answer. The reason why I'm using challenged is I also gave an analogy that when the democracy is being challenged and we can still stand and not fall, that is the time when we prove that democracy is the strongest. It is being challenged, yes, it is being challenged every single day, but even then we are standing as a nation. We still call ourselves a democratic nation. I think that is why the democracy is very strong still now, and it's not on a decline. So it's not just a replacement of the word reduction, but rather I think being challenged is the more appropriate word. And I would also like to say that if you have a problem with how the current establishment is handling the situations, and being very candid to the learned house, even I have problems with the on how the current establishment is handling the situations. But then I know that being a citizen, the constitution gives me the right to cast my vote when the next election comes and vote that government out of power. And that is what happens in a democratic nation. I still reserve the right to cast my vote if I do not think the current establishment is
So,
dealing with these
Suryodip,
votes in the right manner, and vote them out.
Sorry, with your permission, can I reframe your argument? Can I say that you are pro democratic institutions? You don't support the people who are sitting in that institutions, but you do support that the institutions are magnificent thing. And after 5 years, whenever the election will come, we will throw the people out and the institution will shine again.
Absolutely, I do believe that the institutions of the country are properly framed. The people sitting on those institutions might be mishandling it, and I believe that we have the power. We as the people have the power to change the people who are handling those institutions, and then
Okay.
again prove the democratic nature of the nation.
Okay, to both the sides. Now, I would like to present before you something, and after which I would like both of you to argue on it, and I would like to see where you stand. So, just listen me for 30 seconds. So, there was this book which came out in 2018. The name of the book was How Democracy Dies. Okay, this book is written by Steven Levitsky and Daniel Ziblatt. Both are renowned professors in international universities. Okay, so what they argued in the book was that it is a thing of past that democracies used to trample by the way of coup or by the way of military force. Right now, what is happening is democracy will die not by a military force, not by a coup. Military will die by the consent of the people living in the country. They have argued that the populist leaders, it is the way in which the populist leaders take consent from the people. For example, I would like to argue before you that the present establishment has been criticized for many laws it has made. Okay, but never the government has never gone back on their stand. Instead, what they have done is created certain frameworks to justify their work, right? So do you think that government is sleepish way in a sleepish manner creeping into the grabs and just diluting the democratic institutions? Both of you, I would like to ask, since Suryadeep has also agreed that people in the institution might not be right, the institution is right. I agree with you. But since you have also argued that people might not be right, I would like to ask this question to you also. First, Shivang.
So yeah, I absolutely agree that this is exactly what's happening, and the polarization of the country towards a majoritarian state is the reason why democracy is on a decline, and this is a clear cut case of creating a divide in the population and exploiting that to gain power, and there since simultaneously there has not been much economic development happening in our country, and pure power concentration with various passing of various laws like electoral bonds, CAA, UAPA, and various sections of 295, 298, 296, 188, 34 of IPC, and 153 as well. Such laws, with pure misuse of such laws, and the way the laws have been constructed in such a vague manner that can be exploited in many ways, has happened so many times in our country that it's worrying for me. Now, the four indexes that I quoted, there is a reason behind I quoted four indexes. Now, the first one is the Civil Liberties Act, to right to protest. Now, I would like to question this one thing. What about the mob lynching that has been happening? All the peaceful protesters are going on, and the police comes and they just shower them with all their love, with the stick and water pumps and all of that. That happens quite frequently. Mob lynching, that does say that we have a right to protest, but that also says that there is an opposition to the dissent, there is an opposition to all the contrary events, and it's not just the ones who are protesting, but all those who are being constructively criticized, constructively criticizing the one in the power. Now, the second index that I mentioned was freedom of speech. It is the freedom for you to just speak out whatever you want to say, and various journalists have been dying, and they're being blackmailed, and their lives have been made so hard by the people in the power, that they refuse to do this, expose such kind of things, to do the right thing, do the journalism that they were training, and that's their passion. That's why I wanted to point that out, that it's been happening so long that we don't have a freedom of speech, freedom of expression. Now, the third thing, rule of law. The law has been exploited in the apex institutions like SC, where we think that we can trust the Supreme Court, we can trust the RBI, we can trust the Election Commission of India, we can trust the Parliament of our country. All these institutions have been manipulated in such a beautiful way with the help of law that the concentration of power has been it's so easy. And one such example is the handling of election finance. The laws have been made in such a way that it shows that the electoral funding is being made transparent, but in truth, in reality, it's been more opaque than ever. And I would love to dive into that whole discussion. That is one different realm altogether. And the fourth thing is academic freedom, the freedom to research and share your views. And when we are scared of talking about something because people will deem you anti-national, well, people will deem you and they'll criticize you, they'll shout at you, and they'll tell you to go to Pakistan with such kind of harsh intolerance. People like me who are scared, they go in the shell again, and the academic freedom drops. And that's what I'm scared of, all these things happening together at the same time after the same period, done by the same people, drops to the conclusion that democracy is on the decline. And I do agree with you, with the opposition here, that okay, we can definitely correct ourselves. We have corrected ourselves many times in the past, and we are going to do it again. But the argument here is that we are falling, and there are various instances. All these indexes are quantitative, but they are based on qualitative facts and qualitative measures and situations and aftermath and considering everything. So I would suggest that it does not paint an accurate picture, but it does give us an idea of what things are
Right,
and where they're going.
right, Shivang. Okay, Shivang, you took your time. I'll have to go to the opposition now. Opposition. Souryadeep, what do you make out of your opposition said? What do you think? Do you think he's justified in his argument?
Well, at the first, I would like to answer the question which you raised after
Please.
giving that speech. See,
Yeah.
I choose to believe. I still choose to keep my faith in the institutions which we have. I still choose to keep my faith in the judiciary. That if there is something wrong done by the parliament, and even recently we have seen that after passing of the love jihad law, recently the Supreme Court has accepted pleas against the love jihad law, and they are willing to hear to all the cases against it, right? So the judiciary still exists, even if the judiciary is giving a decision which does not seem right, does not seem justified to the left. There is again a decision given on the there is another decision given which is not justified to the right. And I believe that the Supreme Court, the judiciary of our nation, the institution, is rolling in its own manner, and it is just our perspectives whether we like it or not. So I choose to keep my faith in the institutions we have, and if we do not like the people handling those institutions, we have a democratic right to vote them out. Now, as for the opposition's argument, and what they said, that we are having a decline, and we are having a decline, and we have a fair idea of where we are going. First, I think their argument is a bit different from the motion, because the motion is absolute in nature. It says that it has reduced, and my learned opposition is talking about a picture where it is going down. But I feel that, like I already explained in my argument, that it is being challenged. Whether it is going down or whether it's going to go up is a very argumentative nature. I mean, we can always have a discussion. Someone says yes, it's going down, someone says yes, it's going up. But unless it has completely fallen, we cannot say that the democracy in the nation has been destroyed. So as of now, we say that democracy still exists. Democracy exists, and I see the nation in a very democratic manner. That yes, we have the right to protest, and if we do, and if the platforms and if the academic freedom, the freedom of expression was completely done with, then we would not have had a platform to debate. Like, we would not be having this session itself. Like, the very fact that then probably our moderator would have been arrested after this session. But I don't think that is going to happen. I think that even the next day there's going to be a debate held by Optodi. So
Okay.
that's my argument.
Okay. Guys, I think we have exhausted today's time limit, and I think there is a fair amount of agreement here. What I see is from both the sides, what I see is that you both people believe in the institutions of the country. Neither of you are against the institutions of the country, which might not be populated with the people who are, yeah, people like or does not like. There is a subjective point of view. We cannot challenge the thing that please don't like them or please don't like them. So okay, right now I'll have to come quickly to you and take your conclusion within 30 seconds. If you can please tell me that if there is something else that you wanted to add and you didn't get the time to add. So Shivang, with you please, and keep it short please.
Okay, so first thing is that going with the motion, it is definitive, and by what I intended to say was that we were, let's say, we were on 100, then we're dropping down to 70. So that's us the fact that it's reduced and it's going down further. So that is just an additional part of statement that I wanted to say, and this is what I want to substantiate. I think I presented all the four pillars of democracy that we stand on, and all the four pillars have seen a decline, and there is a way to measure it according to me. I uh, do believe that these indexes give us a fair value of how the world actually is and how to measure such things which are so qualitative in nature, which might not be accurate, but this is what is our best way to design it, and this is what our best theory is, and I do stand by it, and I do believe in the system. I do believe that we are going to correct ourselves, and I do believe in the structure, our judiciary. But when instances like this happen on such large level and so many times, it scares me as a citizen of this country, and I do believe that, yeah, we are having a debate. There's a good debate happening right now, but on a larger level, on a macro level, we have seen such problems, and that is the basis of my argument. So this would be my conclusion, that I do believe in the system, but I've seen that the reduction in such indexes have pointed this out, that democracy is on decline.
Okay, thank you. Over to you, Suryadeep. What do you have to say in your concluding argument?
Well, I would like to wrap up my argument saying that I still believe that democracy is something which we cannot measure in numbers or measure in a graph. I believe that the entire procedure on how we are living through we are living through the entire tenure of this government on and everything that's going on, and it's not just about this government, it's about the next government, it's also about the previous government on and how the nation deals with the entire procedure and how we grow as a nation. I think the entire thing is there when we call our nation a democratic one. And it's not something we can put on pen and paper that the democracy has risen from where it was and the democracy has fallen from where it was. So I believe it's wrong to measure democracy in terms of quantity. I believe we can talk about democracy as a wholesome in a wholesome picture, and that is why I believe that democracy still exists. And I'm not going to call that democracy has reduced. I'll call it again that democracy is being challenged, and I'll say that we are fighting against what we think is happening wrong, and we'll have our chance to cast our votes and say that yes, you were wrong, and hope for a better future. But I won't call that democracy has reduced. So
Okay, thank you,
in that
Suryadeep.
nature, I'll say that the motion is not right and the motion falls.
Okay, okay. Thank you so much, Sharideep. Guys, right now I have some news to share with you with our viewers. So Optody is coming up with a new segment altogether. We are going to have from Monday, 11th of January, we are going to have ladies Tafri. So what is it to know? Just watch this video.
हेलो आई एम गीतिका एंड वी आर ऑफ टू डी। हम आप लोग के लिए कुछ नया ला रहे हैं स्पेशली फॉर यू लेडीज। वी आर ब्रिंगिंग लेडीज तफरी, अ प्लेस वेयर यू कैन बी नॉस्टैल्जिक, बी एम्बिशियस, स्पीक अबाउट योरसेल्फ, जो आप थी, जो आप हैं और जो आप होना चाहती हैं। ऑल इन ऑल वी हैव लॉट्स ऑफ फन, सो जस्ट मीट अप एट 4:30 PM ऑन मंडे।
Okay, so that was Ladies Tafri. And guys, if you like our content, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Please share our videos with your friends, your family, your group, and to be notified to know about what other things we are going to bring to you. Please follow our Instagram page and Facebook page, the details of which will be given on your screens. And again, this is an open to discussion platform. We want everybody from all the walks of life to come to our platform and discuss issues which matter to the country. So if you want to participate in our discussion, one of our many discussions, the details are given on the screen. Please contact us and we'll be glad to have you with us. With that, thank you both of you. That was a very informative discussion, and it was really, really good to have you both. Okay, with that, signing off, Opturi.